All right, so we're here to honor and remember my dad, our dad, Chris Stromsness. And we've got a lot of people here that it's really great to see. I do want to acknowledge that we have Karen. Where is Karen? Karen, that's my dad's sister. And we also have David and Paul, my dad's cousins. And we also have Anna and Oliver, his grandchildren. And we don't have Rune's partner, but he's sick, but he's here in spirit. And we also have my Uncle Doug, who's my mom's brother. And I just want to also say, thank you to Rotary and St. Barnabas, and shout out to Big Dave, who was on the phone helping us out with lots of stuff, and made it so we didn't have to think much about it. So really appreciate that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blow a bit of I'm going to blow up a lie that my dad told. It's something that you probably aren't aware of, but he told a lie really regularly. He told it all over the world. And I'm going to tell you what that is today. My dad was not allergic to cheese. He just didn't like it. So if you knew Dad, he would often say, "I'm allergic to cheese." Not true. Not true. Everything he ordered, he said no cheese, and that might make sense if he was ordering a burger, but less so if it was gazpacho. Still, he was consistent with that, as he was really in all things. So let's back up. Our dad was born in the state of Washington to Hallie and Strom. I always loved the name Strom. I tried to pull it off a few times unsuccessfully. It's such a fantastic nickname. There are a few people that can pull off a one-name nickname, like Elvis or Bono. His parents were strong, interesting, intelligent people who produced strong, interesting, and intelligent children. While he was born in Washington, he was raised in Corning, just down the road. Corning is where he formed lifelong friendships, and where the core of his personality was really built. Surrounded by olive and almond farms, not almond. Do you know why they call them almond? They shake the L out of them. That was one of my dad's standards. Surrounded by those orchards, he had freedom, good friends, and he had Hall Creek. It was an important place to him, with people he cared about and continued caring about until his final days. Dad would talk about high school football, about the many girls he crushed on who didn't crush back, and about that one softball game in Las Molinas where he hit a home run that one time. So we were driven past that field on more than one occasion. There were other things that Dad loved. You could hear him say, "Go Bears," anytime someone with anything Cal related walked anywhere near him. He consumed multiple newspapers when they were still a thing. He loved birding and could often be seen with a pair of binoculars. He got to just about 3,000 bird species. It's just, there are lumpers and splitters, so if you are generous with the splitting, he got over 3,000. He loved reading, and as a kid, he would read to Rune and I, lying on the couch in our front room. I still don't know if that's a living room or a family room. We would lie on the couch with him, and he'd read Kon-Tiki and Horatio Hornblower to us. Not children's books, but interesting books that I think stoked a love of things maritime in my brother for the rest of his life. He loved music and salmon in almost any form, as long as there wasn't cheese. He loved a good apple pie. He loved a good trip, almost as much as he liked planning a good trip. He was a lifelong Giants fan, a Niners fan, a Warriors fan, a Dunsmuir Tigers fan, and he loved his grandchildren. Another thing he loved deeply was this place, Dunsmuir, his chosen home. He and our mom, Sharon, moved to Dunsmuir as newlyweds in 1968. They moved here for two reasons. First, because Howard Jones offered Dad $300 a month. Secondly, Howard's offer was the one of two he received from the dozens of letters he sent out to lawyers all over Northern California, located in any town within reasonable driving distance of the Steelhead River. That's a true story. There was one more reason as well, an idea that Strom had introduced years before, which had taken root in the back of my dad's mind. And it was this: a small town lawyer could pretty much set his own destiny. He could close up shop if there was an away football game or if the fishing was particularly good. Dunsmuir, this town, became his place, and he fit in at the base, part of the foundation, giving strength to the structure. He spent 53 of his 83 years here in Dunsmuir, and if he could have, he would have stayed here forever. He served as city attorney in addition to having his office down next to Ron McLeod's hardware store. He was involved. He gave of his time and his coin. He was part of the group that made things happen. He was a scout leader there when my brother, Rune, became an Eagle Scout. He was a leader in his church named Barnabas, where he often greeted people at the doors, handing out programs and counting the money. And if you were sitting close to him when the church would recite the Nicene Creed, you could hear him replace true God with true cod. I think that was for my benefit, and I appreciated it greatly. His primary vehicle for making things happen was the Rotary Club. He was a proud Rotarian and devoted thousands of hours to the club, and the club devoted thousands of hours to making Dunsmuir a better place, and it still does. Civic engagement, that was a big part of who my dad was, how he interacted with many of you, and how he provided value, how he cared. He didn't do it alone, of course. He had a community around him, helping him. As he was doing all of this community building, he had a fantastic partner, his wife, our mom, Sharon. They were a Dunsmuirian dynamic duo. Many of you were probably there about a decade ago when I gave a talk about my mom at her service. All of those things are still true. She was a powerful force for good in our little town. She touched so many lives as an educator, as a volunteer, as a friend. My mom was the driving force of their relationship and our family. She was determination in mom form. She planned, she executed. She would maybe sometimes get a little wrapped up in it all and get a little bit tightly wound. And it was my dad who provided the comic relief, the pressure release valve for our family. In this way, there was a yin and a yang to them, different but complementary. So it isn't really surprising that maybe something like that is the model I have found in my own marriage with my determined and wickedly smart physician wife. Renee would be much more stressed out if I weren't there to crack the jokes. I'm just more willing to make those jokes loudly and publicly than my dad was. At a ceremony that my dad performed, a wedding ceremony years ago, I heard him once say to the new bride and groom that marriage isn't about finding the right partner, it's about being the right partner. And you know, I'm so glad that I have managed to be the right partner. Isn't that right? Okay, so let's talk about something important. Let's talk about fishing. After all, talking about fishing is something Dad liked almost as much as he liked doing it. He was full of fishing stories. He had stories of fishing around Corning, Hall Creek, a place where Rune and I started fishing, and yes, there was a time when Rune fished. He had stories of fishing with his dad and his Uncle Bob, a particularly colorful individual, and the source of many wonderful childhood stories. From these, for example, I learned the 7 kinds of farts. I won't go into those now. Dad had stories of fishing around the West, off the docks of South Bend, Washington as a kid, the rivers of Southern Oregon, the ponds and creeks and rivers of Northern California, stories of the hallowed waters of the Babine River up in British Columbia, and a few stories of saltwater trips with me in places like the Bahamas, Hawaii, Florida, Mexico, and of course he had stories of the Klamath. He loved the Klamath and the steelhead therein. Klamath River Lodge was his favorite bit of water, and this was a man who loved water. He had a streak of about 40 years of fishing the Klamath on Labor Day. He'd get up before the sun to be on the water when the sun broke over the rim of the canyon for what he called the morning rise. I was there the last time he fished the waters of the Klamath River Lodge. He was having trouble standing in the river, so I got him a folding camp chair, and he used that and his stay rod to reach the good water. And he hooked and landed a little half pounder there. I mean, you know, he made it work. think there's a picture in the cycling of him actually sitting there in the water with this spey rod. Dad was a mellow guy. He was quick to smile, quick to laugh, and extremely slow to anger. I was asking my brother if he could remember a time when Dad was red hot angry, and he couldn't think of a time, and neither could I. I don't remember a time my dad ever exploded at anyone or anything. Sure, he was less than pleased with things from time to time, but he carried almost all of that quietly and retained his calmness. I've also been struck going through the sort of the end of life times with my dad of this idea of an expanding and contracting world. His world started as most of ours did, and you're born and you have a crib, you have a room, you have a house, then a street and a neighborhood, and then maybe a town or city, and then you get your wings and you fly off as a winged adult and go to maybe to college or university. You grow your world and your worldview. Then a job, work, a world of responsibilities that grows you as a person, grows how much people depend on you. Maybe you grow your family. There's a time there in the middle somewhere where your world is maybe your county, your state, your region of the country, the whole world. You can travel almost anywhere. You see things you've never seen, you experience things you've never experienced, and then at some point those trips are too long and your feet hurt too much, and that was too much walking. Maybe a shorter trip, your world constricts just a little bit and then constricts more. Then you are maybe good for a decent drive and then a shorter one. Then maybe the travel's too much and your body hurts too much. And then maybe your world is your county or town, and then maybe you can no longer drive and your world is your street, your house. Dad's world started shrinking about 7 or 8 years ago, and it atrophied in bursts. It was my brother who braced the walls for a time in my dad's world. He got him birding, he took him to Giants games, he got him out to various fields to see Oliver play soccer. He got him to our house for various family celebrations and meals. It was a time when that wasn't so easy to do, but he kept the shrinking at bay. So thank you, Bruno. And then at the end, and quickly, it went from his city to his neighborhood, to his apartment, to his room, to his bed. And so I just urge you to take advantage of the time you have when your wings are still able to carry you far and wide. Travel is the antidote to ignorance. The last thought I'll share with you was one that my dad shared with me here, actually, in this room. Many years ago, many of us were here for Fred Vogel's service. Mr. V, as many of us knew him. Fred and my dad had been friends, and early on had been fishing buddies. Fred had a habit of counting as a caught fish any fish that had been on his line for even a short bit of time. In this way, this was in our family is what we called a Vogel. It was a fish that was on the line but not landed. You might say, I caught 4 and Vogel 2. When Dad counted, he counted every fish he ever caught, just so you know. When Fred passed, he had his service here in this room, and at the service, Dad ran into dozens of people that he knew and he liked and he wanted to see more of. And it was with some degree of sadness as we were leaving. He said it was such a shame that you only saw the people you wanted to see at weddings and funerals. And something about that in me resonated. And so now on my birthday, every year, it's become what we call the Extrovert Appreciation Day. And I invite my local community, my friends, and as many friends as possible to come out for food and drink and storytelling and friendship. And I encourage all of you to look for ways to connect, to celebrate, to find companionship and friendship together, especially outside of a wedding or a funeral. And I'm happy to see all of you here. So thank you for coming. That's what I have to say about this wonderful man. And we'd encourage any stories that you might have, as long as they're PG. And of course they are, because that's who he was.